I've not seen a magnet with one side. It always has two sides. I've never seen a coin with one side. It has two sides. I've not seen an event in life one-sided. I really was a little low because I thought, well, I spent 12 years of my life pursuing something that wasn't so. Yeah, I've heard that. So what is your mission now?
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce Dr. Demartini, the person whom I personally admire, who I believe the most knowledgeable. I don't want to say speaking industry because it sounds shallow. It's not about speaking, it's about really transforming lives. And Dr. Demartini has got tremendous knowledge. I've read that you have read about 30,000 books, and you've done 299 different disciplines, and you call yourself behavioral specialist. And you are an author, you're a speaker, and you are, as I said, incredible person whose mission is sharing. And I thought, whom am I going to invite for my channel? And I thought, well, who couldn't be better than you? In time of when people are scared, when people lost their sometimes relatives and loved ones, when people lost their jobs. And what can you advise us, myself including, how to overcome this and how to become better out of the whole pandemic situation? And who knows, maybe there'll be a second wave and a third wave. And so this is my kind of first and basic questions. What do we do? I need your advice and guidance.
Well, I'm a firm believer that we have, as William James, the father of modern psychology, stated about 125 years ago, that the greatest discovery of his generation is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their perceptions and attitudes of mind. We have control over three things in life: our perceptions, our decisions, and our actions. So giving ourselves permission to not be swayed by the world on the outside, but to perceive it in a way that it's on the way, not in the way, is to our greatest advantage. The quality of our life is based on the quality of the questions we ask. If we ask a wise question, we end up with amazing outcomes. Instead of, why is this happening to me? I had just simply asked, how specifically is what objectively is occurring helping me fulfill my mission on earth? How specifically is what I perceive in my reality helping me accomplish what I want that's most meaningful? We've all had experiences in our life where we thought that there's this terrible event occurred. And then a day, a week, a month, a year, or 5 years later, we look back at it and we go, wow, I'm so thankful that occurred. But why have the wisdom of the ages with the aging process? We can right there on the spot find the wisdom of the ages without the aging process by asking, how specifically can I utilize this experience to my greatest advantage to serve? I've not seen a magnet with one side. It always has two sides. I've never seen a coin with one side. It has two sides. I've not seen an event in life one-sided. I've never met a human being one-sided. There's just a human being, and they have both sides. And by asking, where's the upside to this thing I think has a downside, I discover the fullness of the experience. When we're infatuated with somebody, we're conscious of the upside and unconscious of the downside. And we really don't know them. We're ignorant of the downsides. When I'm resentful to somebody, I put them in a pit. I'm conscious of the downsides. I'm unconscious of the upsides. But if I love somebody and I embrace both sides and I'm aware of it, I'm fully conscious. To be fully conscious of each experience in our life liberates us from the emotional bondage that weighs us down when we become emotionally in our amygdala distracted by our infatuations and resentments. So I don't think there's an event out there that is positive or negative. I think that all events have both. And it's our responsibility to go and dig for the other side, to be fully conscious so we can take advantage of the opportunities that are always at hand. So this situation has tremendous upsides. I recently saw a picture of New Delhi, and you can see the mountains in the background. It's the cleanest air it's ever seen in 35 years.
Right.
Los Angeles is cleaner. I've seen people send out hilarious, comical things from the crazy things they're doing at home with their families that normally doesn't occur. I've seen people now uniting around the world on Zoom. I've seen new technologies, new advancements, new research. If we stop and count the blessings of these events, as many of my students have done out of the encouragement, they've listed thousands of events, thousands I've received around the world for this event called coronavirus. Saint Corona, some people call it. So I don't think it's wise to be focusing and become victim of history. I think it's wise to be master of destiny by focusing on both sides. Center yourself, stabilize yourself, put yourself in the executive center where creative ideas and genius is born again, and take advantage of the opportunities that are always there that we sometimes ignore when we're emotional and blinded by a one-sided view.
Right. And I remember you were, in one of your talks, you were saying that take a list of paper and put down all the positive things which is happening right now. However,
Yeah.
I know you're very critical about positive thinking as such. I remember you were saying on numerous occasions that positive thinking leads to nowhere. So it's not the positive attitude or positive thinking which is important, but something else. So taking things in duality, right? I think you call
Yes.
it. Mm-hmm.
There's a place for looking at the upsides when things are perceived down. There's a thing to look at the downside when things are up. Healthy skepticism is essential, or otherwise the people will sell you planetary land at a discount. But you need a balanced thought because it's the only thing that centers you. We can't expect balanced physiology without a balanced mind. And I think that many people become fantasia oriented and become addicted to the dopamine fixes and the serotonin rushes of the fantasy. And then when life smacks them in the face with the other side, they're not prepared. So I think it's wise to have an objective view, to look at both sides, prepare for both sides, and you'll have foresight instead of reacting with hindsight. Mm-hmm. The lowest heuristic decision-making process is through hindsight and going through trial and error and holding on to fantasies and then being unprepared for life. I'm a believer in having both sides. I have both sides. I'm not a one-sided individual. I've never met anybody that's one-sided. And I don't find goals that are one-sided actually occur. There's always challenges that come with it. So I think it's wise to have a balanced orientation. But we need positive thinking when we're seeing only the downsides. We need negative thinking when we're seeing only the upsides. We need to say, therefore, I just say, why bother with either one of those sides? Why not just embrace that there's two sides of life and appreciate them? If you have a relationship with somebody and you expect them to be only one-sided, you're going to be let down. And then you're going to think they betrayed you. They didn't. You did, because you had an unrealistic expectation projected onto them, expecting to live in a one-sided world. Not going to happen. So the same thing with goals. The difference between a fantasy and a true objective is one is got only the upsides without a downside that you get smacked by, and the other is you're prepared. And one, when you're prepared for things with foresight, you have higher achievements than if you're unprepared and have to learn from hindsight. So I'm a firm believer in having a balanced and objective view on life. I find that I've achieved more when I've done that, and less volatility, more stability.
Well, it's like in martial art. You know, if you look at these shoguns, and they're saying that, well, they don't express too much joy, and they don't grieve that much. So they're kind of like water. They're staying still.
Water, exactly. Martial artist in Japan, one of the greatest, basically told us how to become water when somebody's got you and grabbing you, and then they can't hold you because you're fluid. You have resilience and adaptability. The Buddha was noted as saying, I don't know, I wasn't around at the time of the Buddha, but this is what they said. Who knows what he really said? Mm-hmm. But the Buddha says the desire for that which is unobtainable and the desire to avoid that which is unavoidable becomes a source of human suffering. Right. And we strive for a one-sided world and miss out on the magnificence of the two sides that it offers. So I'm a simple, more of a balanced thinker, and I find that keeps me steady. In my 20s, I did an experiment where I took 300 of the best-selling books that were on the market that I had read from age 18 to 28. And I went and I circled every positive word that was able to be found in the books. I literally page by page, I'd already read and underlined the books anyway. These are the best-selling books, Power of Positive Thinking, Magic of Thinking Big, these kind of things. Psycho-Cybernetic. And I went through and I circled every positive word in there, and I put them and translated them onto index cards. And on the top left corner, I put the word. And then I put them alphabetically, shuffled them into a box, and I accumulated 2,000 of them. I then meditated on each word. On each word, I meditated and thought of a quotation, affirmation that I could apply that included that word in it. That was the most upbeat, most, positive statement that I could think of with that word in it. Mm-hmm. I accumulated 2,000, wrote 2,000 of them. I then divided that into 365 days, which made 5 or 6 quotations per day. And then I published that in a book. If you go online, you can actually find this book still out there, called 2,000 Quotes to the Wise, a day-by-day guide to inspirational living. I published it. I sold 25,000 copies, another 25,000 copies, and put it out there. In the process of doing that, I started in the morning. I made a research project. I started in the morning at 6 something, and I pulled out the quotations for the day. Because they started on January 1st and went all the way to December 31st. 5 to 6 quotes a day times 365 days gives you 2,000 quotes. And I memorized those quotes. And then what I did is I created a day-by-day cycle forecasting form. And it was a form that had spiritual, mental, career, financial, family, social, and physical. It had 31 days across the lines of the top. And each day had 4 quadrants, 7 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and 7 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And then each of the areas had a +3, +2, +1, 0, -1, -2, -3. And what I decided to do is I was going to chant these affirmations, like the japa beads of India or like the rosary beads of the West.
Mantras.
I was going to chant these affirmations 108 times a day, times 5 to 6 quotes. That's 540 to 648 quotes a day minimum. And the truth is I did about 1,000 a day. And all day long, I started at 6 something in the morning and went all the way in the evening, chanting these affirmations throughout the day under the guise of that if I put that into my mind, I will get that as the outcome. So I recited those, and every 4 hours, I had a beeper in my pocket, and I had the form unfolded from my pocket, and I would pull out the form, and I would document how I felt in each of these areas 4 times a day. So I kept a record of how do I feel spiritually? Do I feel inspired or despired? Do I feel mentally sharp and alert and creative, or do I feel dull? Do I feel in business successful or failure? In finance, do I feel abundant or lacking? Socially, do I feel extroverted or introverted? Relationship, more close and intimate or distant? And physically, do I feel physically vitalized or poor energy? And I monitored that 4 times a day while I was making these affirmations, doing that around 600 to 1,000 times a day. It was the most concerted effort on positive thinking that I was ever able to find in the literature that I did. I wanted to know, because for the first 10 years of my life doing that, I was finding myself sometimes feeling like a hypocrite. I was saying be positive, but I wasn't remaining it. And I was meeting the people that were claiming it, but I didn't always see it. Right. And then I was feeling this, I did rubber bands popping, cancel that. I did, all kind of gimmicks to try to get me to be one-sided. But all I was doing is becoming more frustrated and volatile and going into pride moments and shame moments and feeling like a big hypocrite. So I did this research project, and I kept record of it every day, like clockwork, as disciplined as I am. I'm disciplined in many areas.
I can imagine, yeah.
I did this every day, 4 times a day, monitoring it, 108 quotes minimum, quotation repeatings, 600 to 1,000 quotations every day for 24 months, 2 years. At the end of it, on a Tuesday, I got a calculator out, and I went through it with a calculator and calculated all the numbers, all the volatilities of plus threes, zeros, plus ones, minus ones, etc. And I looked at the patterns to find out the patterns, and I ran all the numbers and totaled them out. And it came out basically zero. Mm-hmm. And that was a real shocker, because in physics, we know that nature tends towards equanimity. In chemistry, things are trying towards valencies to zero to get the most efficient usage. In our psychology, in our physiology, in our endocrinology, in every aspect of our physiology, it's got a homeostatic mechanism to go to equilibrium. The research pointed to it, but I saw it firsthand, that my ups and downs oscillated and moved and gyrated, but the overall net was basically zero. So then I realized, okay, all that effort was just creating volatility. It wasn't stabilizing me, because I was trying to separate the inseparables, divide the indivisibles, label the unlabellables, name the inefables, and polarize the unpolarizables, instead of actually just embracing life as it is and loving people for both sides. I was trying to get rid of half of myself and try to get rid of half of other people's and try to get half of life away instead of embrace the fullness of life. How am I going to have love for myself if I'm trying to get rid of half of myself? So in the process of doing that, when I got the data back, I really was a little low, because I thought, well, I spent 12 years of my life pursuing something that wasn't so. Mm-hmm. And I really made an effort at it. And then I wondered, I remembered a quote by a genius, Paul Dirac, Nobel Prize winner. He said, it's not that we don't know so much, we know so much that isn't so. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow, I wonder what else I've been taught that isn't so. And I started questioning authority. And Albert Einstein said, my contempt for authority is what made me the authority. And Emerson said, envy is ignorance and imitation is suicide. And most people conform and parrot what to think instead of thinking for themselves. So I started to question, is this really a truth? Or is this just a belief system that sells dopamine in order to sell and to keep people disempowered? The fastest way to disempower people is to sell them an idealism that nobody can live by, right, that makes them feel depreciated, so they're easily governed. Right. It's easy to govern them with conditional reflexes. So then I decided, if there is negativity in me, what's the purpose of it? And I discovered something really amazing. I discovered that my negativity had a source. I found 15 primary sources of that negativity. An unrealistic expectation on some individual to be one-sided. And if I have that expectation, I'm going to be having anger and aggression. I'm going to blame them and feel betrayed. I'm going to feel criticism and challenge to them. I'm going to feel despaired and depressed. I want to exit and escape them. I'll feel futility and frustration. I'll be grouchy and grieving. I'm going to have hatred and hurt. And I'm going to feel insane and irritable over my expectation. And those negativities are feedbacks to let me know that I have projected an unrealistic expectation on another human being. Mm-hmm. The second one was an unrealistic expectation on them to live outside their highest values and in my values. They're not going to. They're going to live according to their own values. They filter their reality accordingly. So if I have an expectation for them to read my mind and live in my values, they're going to automatically I'm going to have the ABCDs of negativity again. So I went through and I found that if I put those two together, that's number 3. Then I had an unrealistic expectation on myself to be one-sided. Then I had an expectation on me to live outside my own values and other people and try to live in other people's values. Mm-hmm. Then I expected those two together. Then I put all 7 of those together, those 6 together, to make number 7. Then I had an unrealistic expectation on culture to be a certain way, to live in my values and to be one-sided. Another illusion, because it's a collective now fantasy. Then I expected mechanical objects to do that they're supposed to read my mind and read and be, and I would be upset with mechanical objects, an ATM machine or something like that. And I looked at all of the unrealistic expectations and delusions and fantasies I was imposing that were one-sided and that were not grounded in how human behavior works. And I realized that every one of my negativities had a source, and they were there as an essential feedback to me to let me know how to set real objectives and real goals in real time with real strategies, honoring real values of human beings and not projecting narcissistically my expectation on the world. And I now am grateful for both sides of my life because of that, and other people's lives.
It's amazing. So it's, but But let me ask, I mean, I know that you had a mentor, you had someone whom you met when you were, I think, 17. I've read a good story of the gentleman who was mentoring you for 2 years. So it's who pushed you, because you were dyslexic, you were a school dropout. I mean, I think you mentioned that you couldn't read, and then such a rocket, woof, and you've read so many books, like I don't know many people on earth who would read so much as you do. And why did you start doing that in the first place? Why have you decided to basically, you want to realize your potential, right? You want to understand about yourself. You want to make yourself a better person. And that's why you were doing this exercise for 2 years, basically, which...
Well, yes, I wanted to know what was so instead of just because somebody said something.
Mm.
I did have learning challenges as a child. I started to go to a speech pathologist when I was 1.5 years old and had to use buttons and strings in my mouth because I couldn't properly use my mouth.
Mm.
I also had reading problems. I was told in first grade I would never be able to read, never be able to write, never be able to communicate, never amount of thing, never go very far in life. My parents, they told them that, and I had to wear a dunce cap when I was a kid. I ended up making it through school by asking kids questions. That's the only way I was passing school at all. I eventually dropped out at 13, 14. And I was a street kid. And I was decent at surfing. And so I took up surfing. And I hitchhiked from Texas to California. And then I made enough money panhandling on the streets there to fly to Hawaii. And I lived under a bridge first, then in a park bench, then a park bathroom, then an abandoned car, and then a tent, and then a little grass house tent combination. And I was surfing in the North Shore, riding big waves. But I nearly died when I was 17, which led me to a little health food store to recover, which led me to a talk, which introduced me to Paul Bragg. Mm-hmm. And Paul Bragg, in one night, 1 hour, with his one message, really spoke to me in ways that nobody had ever done. And he said that we have a body, we have a mind, and we have a soul. The body must be guided by the mind must be directed by the soul if we want to maximize our experience and human potential. And that we are here to set goals for ourselves, our family, our community, our city, our state, our nation, our world, and beyond to 100, 120 years. I just decided to do what he said. Made sense. I could understand what he was saying. He spoke really simple. I went to a little health food store and I found a book on a little rolling rack, a little spinning rack. Mm-hmm. And there was a guy with a long-haired hippie looking guy that had written the book called Chico's Organic Gardening and Natural Living. Mm-hmm. And it looked like me. And I thought, if that guy could write it, I bet I could read it. That was the first book I ever picked up because I couldn't read. I was 18 almost then. And, but I went through that book. It's the first book I ever actually went through page by page. I didn't get to read it all, but I looked at the pictures because it was gardens. And I really, 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 that night was the first night meeting Paul Bragg that I ever thought that maybe I could overcome my learning problems and maybe I could someday be intelligent. I never thought I was going to be intelligent. I was going to be the dunce. I had a desire to, but I didn't believe it was possible. But that night that I met him, I believed for the first time, and I saw a vision that maybe that's possible. So I went to pick up a book, and I found that book. And then I started meditating, because he told me to do that, and envisioning and saying to myself how I want my life to be. He told me to say every single day, and never miss a day for the rest of my life, a statement called, I'm a genius and I apply my wisdom. He said, if you say that, sooner or later the cells of your body will tingle with it, so will the world. So I did. I've never missed a day in 47 plus years. Not one.
You became one. You became a genius. You are a genius.
I think we all are, but we don't always honor it. But what happened was I then went back. I flew to Los Angeles. I hitchhiked back to Texas. My mom suggested that I take a GED, which is a high school equivalency test, because I dropped out. Mm-hmm. And I guessed and miraculously passed that test. I have no idea. I literally closed my eyes and said, I'm a genius and I apply my wisdom, and filled in a little dot. I passed that. I now have a high school degree equivalence. She said that would help you get a job. Then she suggested, since the surface down, why don't you consider taking a college entrance exam? I did the exact same thing and guessed, and somehow miraculously passed. I started to think that somehow there was a higher power helping me. I didn't know how to describe it except that. And then I took my first summer school class in history. And I thought that the same thing was going to happen again. But this time I got a 27, and I needed a 72 to pass, and I got a 27. And when I saw that result, I didn't want to talk to anybody. I ran to my car, and I got sunk down in my car, and I started crying. And all I could do is hear my first grade teacher saying he'll never read, he'll never write, he'll never communicate, he'll never amount to anything, never go very far in life. And I really lost my vision and dream of being a teacher and learning at the time. And I drove home, and my mother was there. Well, I got there first, and I curled up under the fetal position, in a fetal position under this Bible stand. And my mom came home from shopping, and she said, "Son, what happened? What's wrong?" I said, "Mom, I blew the test. I bombed it. I guess I don't have what it takes. I guess I'll never be able to read or write, etc." And she paused for a moment, said something that only a mother could say. She put her hand on my shoulder, and she said, "Son, whether you become a great teacher, healer, and philosopher and travel the world like you dream, whether you go back to ride giant waves in Hawaii like you've done, or return to the streets and panhandle as a bum like you've done, I just want to let you know that your father and I are going to love you no matter what you do, boy. We love you." When she said that, it's exactly what I needed at that moment. My hand went into a fist, my eyes closed, and I looked up, and I saw a vision of me speaking in front of 1 million people. And I said to myself, I'm going to master this thing called reading and studying and learning. I'm going to master this thing called teaching and philosophy. And I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to travel whatever distance. I'm going to pay whatever price to give my service of love across this planet. I'm not going to let any human being on the face of the earth, not even myself, interfere with that. I hugged my mom. I went into my room, and I got a dictionary out, and I started memorizing 30 words a day. And my mom would test me on 30 words a day, pronouncing them, spelling them, using them in a sentence, the meaning. And to my vocabulary was strong enough to pass school. But I didn't stop there. I just started doing that. I started memorizing dictionaries. I started reading encyclopedias as I learned how to read. And I excelled. And over the next year, my vocabulary grew thousands of words. And on my 19th birthday, my mom said, "What do you want for your birthday, son?" I said, "I want the greatest teachings on the face of the earth, the greatest writings humanity has created from the greatest minds who ever lived." And she said, "You sure you don't want a t-shirt?" I said, "No, Mom, I want the greatest teachings on earth." So she contacted her brother, my Uncle Ralph. He was a professor at MIT in physics and chemistry. And he sent 2 giant 6 by 6 by 6 foot wooden crates to our house on a flatbed truck with thousands of books. I went out with a crowbar and opened those big crates down and filled my room with books and went to work. And that gradually drew people to me asking questions, and people and students, and my students started to grow. By the time I was at University of Houston, I was excelling, and I'd have 100 to sometimes 150, sometimes up to 400 people every day under the trees asking questions, and I was teaching. When I went on to professional school, every single night I taught. I would read 4 to 7 books early in the morning, sometimes more, and teach every single night, and just like a robot doing that. And I never stopped, because when you discover you can do something when you didn't think you could, it's inspiring. So reading became a way of life. And yes, 30,400 something books later, I'm still traveling the world, stepping foot, now in 154 countries, sharing what I research, trying to help people do something to maximize their human awareness potential and the evolution of human consciousness right now. So this is what I love doing.
You made me emotional. I want to give you a hug, because it's really, I mean, it's fantastic. And here we bring another thing, which as a parent, I would like to ask you. I mean, bringing up children, so they would be resilient, happy, confident. What parents do have to do? Because in your case, you had all the disadvantages, but I understand that you have very supporting parents.
My parents were unique. When I left home, it was with blessings. It wasn't, my dad tried to teach me how to be an entrepreneur at 9. I had to pay $7.50 a week to live at the house. And I had to work in the neighborhood doing lawns and things. And I had nine kids working for me by the time I was 9. So he made me an entrepreneur because he knew I couldn't read. He wanted me to learn how to be real street smart. So they weren't frightened of me being on the streets in a sense. They said, he'll figure it out. My dad said, he'll figure it out. I gave him what he needed to know by the time he was 7. So he's going to do fine. And they believed in it. They were sometimes, I'm sure, anxious because they didn't hear from me for periods of time, but they had confidence. So today it's finding out. If you look at the really awakened geniuses on the planet that have made a massive contribution, one thing that was common to them is instead of trying to autocratically force them to be something they didn't want to be, the parents discovered what they were spontaneously called to do and kept feeding that natural expression within the child and honor it. If we treat the child like a little baby that we have to control, it's going to be different. It's going to fit into society and conform. Mm-hmm. But if you go in and actually honor it as a genius from the day it's born and actually watch the genius unfold and then keep allowing everything to be linked to what is spontaneously inspiring to the child, I assure you, just like Terence Tao, the greatest mathematician, Jacob Barnett, Perimeter Institute by the time he's 13 with a PhD, some of these individuals, they find it. A friend of mine who's in Istanbul started singing at 4. She's one of the leading singers now in the world. The individuals that were being honored and respected as geniuses from the beginning and seeing that and allowing everything to be okay with what they want to focus on and allow that to unfold and link everything to what that is. Amazing. I've seen teachers that know how to do that wake up genius in children. So I'm a firm believer in not trying to suppress the individual creativity, but to honor that uniqueness that they have. But sometimes one generation doesn't understand the next generation and they think that they're doing what they think is best for the child. Yes, exactly. But what they're doing is taking their own fears and imposing it on the child many times because it's reminding them of their own stuff in their own life. So we have to honor the genius inside if we want to see the genius emerge.
Right. Because sometimes we feel that they have everything possible, what they can think of, and maybe it's too much. Maybe it's better to create something.
But you want to give them accountability. You want to give them responsibility. Don't rob them of dignity, accountability, responsibility, and productivity. So I'm not saying give them everything. I'm saying find out what they're naturally called to do and link everything that you want for them to that. If you're selling something to somebody, you have to care about the customer enough to find out what their dominant buying motive is, what their values are, and then articulate the product, service, or ideas in their values. We're parents. We're selling ideas. Teachers are selling ideas. Everybody's selling ideas to people. They have to respect the individual to find out what the individual child's values are and communicate in those values, and the child will engage. My son loves video games. He has a video game company now. He's got, he's got, I think, 24,000 people following him now. So that was his dream. For 24 years, that's what he's loved to do. He's now unfolding it, and now he works till 2 a.m. spontaneously. Doesn't need motivation. People do not need motivation in what they value most. And motivation is always a symptom, never a solution for humanity. If you have to motivate somebody to push them uphill to do something, they're not engaged. They're living deontologically instead of by design, by duty, not design. I want people to live by design. So they're inspired by what they do. They can't wait to get up in the morning and do it. And they are enthusiastically grateful and loving and certain about what they're doing because they're masters at what they do.
And of course, once, if they learn about that, about this motivation to wake up in the morning from early days, it's much better than people who are in their 40s and 50s and still do not have a clue, why do they have to wake up in the morning? That's a sad story, but not the end story, because people can do, as you said, the singer became famous singer when he was 40. And there are a lot of other examples when people really at the older age, they found their higher values. Yeah. And
I had a gentleman.
no.
I had a gentleman 72 years old that was attending my signature program, which I've taught 1,102 times now. A guy 72 years old, he came to the program and he thought he would retired. And I told him, as long as you're green, you're growing. As soon as you're ripe and you're rot. But if you don't have something to live for, you have something to die for. So what is your mission now? Well, that's good for in their 40s and 50s, but I've retired and I'm 72. And I said, yeah, I've heard that. So what is your mission now? And he's thought about it. I said, you're probably driving your wife crazy sitting at home if you're not doing anything. What's your mission now? What are you going to do? Take all those years of experience running companies and everything else, you're just going to toss it? You're not going to share it? A lot of people, their lives can be changed, and there's no fulfillment for not doing something that serves people. And he thought about it, and he started writing stuff down. And 3 months later, I was speaking in Dallas, Texas, where I first met him. 3 months later, I was there speaking to 1,200 people, doctors there. I saw him in the back of the room, and he waited to the very end after I spoke and talked to people. And I walked back to him, and he had another friend with him, and they're all dressed immaculately. And I walked up to him, and I gave him a big hug, and he says, I'm back in business. And I said, what's going on? He says, my buddy and I, we both realized this retirement isn't really what we thought. We want to get out there and do something, and our wives are actually appreciating it. And he says, we're back, and we've got a consulting company. We're back, and I feel like 10 years younger. I said, good. Because if you don't feel, we have a sensory cortex and a motor cortex. The motor cortex is for service, and the sensory cortex is for the deserving, the receiving of that service. If you're not using both of them, you're not using your full potential.
Yes, and I think one of the foundations, and I would like you to say a little bit about that, because that's something which definitely affected my life. And I translated that into Russian, by the way, your value factor, your how to define your highest values. Because once you know that, and it takes some effort really to understand it, then it becomes easier in making decisions, in even how you feel about different things. So having this sort of center, this ground, how do you call it, ground earth, or something like, which is like the plateau which you can build up. And we'll say something about that. First of all, I know that this value factor was, or your highest value, was developed quite a while ago. Did it change? And do you still recommend it to use as a starting point for people?
I started working with values 42 years ago.
Right.
And I have been doing value determinations, and they're free on my website if anybody wants to do it. I've been doing value determinations for all those years. But if you ask somebody what their values are, they'll tell you social idealisms, what they've learned from their mother, father, preacher, teacher, mores, traditions, conventions, etc., and a lot of ideologies. I have no interest in that. I'm not interested in what you think. I'm interested in what you live. I'm interested in what your life demonstrates. So I had to go and identify what I call the 13 value determinants to narrow down what the person's really doing. Not what they fantasize, but what they actually do. Mm-hmm. I can make up stuff about what I do, but if you look at my life 24 hours a day, it reveals what I value because I live researching and teaching. So I look at how people fill their space, because things that are important, they keep around them. I look at how they spend their time. They make time, find time, spend time on things that are valuable to them. I look at what energizes them. When they're doing something high in their values, their energy goes up. When they're doing things low in their values, it goes down. I look at where they spend their money. They make money, find money, and spend money on things that are really valuable to them. I look at where they're organized. I look at where they're most disciplined. I look at what they think about, visualize, and internally talk to themselves about, mostly about how they want their life that shows evidence of coming true. I look at what they're actually talking to other people about most and want to keep bringing the conversation to. I look at what inspires them and brings tears to their eyes and inspires them, and what's common to the people who inspire them. I look at what the goals are that they've had that are consistent and persistent and they're being achieved. And I look at what they love learning about and studying about and reading about and watching on YouTube. If I look and find the common thread to those 13 questions, it'll give me a really accurate idea of what they really value, what their life is really demonstrating, not the fantasies that they may be thinking it should be or ought to be, but what it actually is. And then to prioritize your life and to fill your day with high priority actions every day. Your life doesn't fill up with low priority distractions when you do. and to delegate lower priority things. Because anytime you do low priority things, you devalue yourself. Anytime you do high priority things, you value yourself. And you can't expect the world to value you if you don't value yourself. So by doing high priority actions according to what you value most, you wake up a feeling of mission and purpose and something that you can't wait to, with enthusiasm to get up and do. And when you can't wait to get up and do service for people, people can't wait to get that service. And that gives you a competitive edge and the sizzle in your experience.
Right. But this value is a reflection of what you already have, or it's a motivation to become better?
Well, you got to be careful about better.
Yeah, I know, better, worse.
Because I'll give you an example. I did a presentation on how to be more efficient at work with time. And there was a gentleman there who attended that program, and he applied it. Not everybody does so thoroughly, but this man went out and applied what I shared. He got a promotion. He got more in sales. He got more productive. His boss said, you know, whatever it is, that seminar you went to, there's been a massive shift in you since you started applying these principles. So to that boss, he saw what I did for him by sharing that information, and what he applied made his life better. But because he was now getting accolades and getting acknowledgement and getting rewarded at work, he was spending more time at work and less time at home. Mm-hmm. So his wife said, ever since you went to that darn seminar, you have gone backwards and you're not focusing on what's important in her values. So she said he's gotten worse since he went to that seminar. The boss said he's gotten better. So I don't go by that, because those are all different spectrums of values, and they will label that. All I can say is that he's more effective and efficient at what his priorities are in the fulfillment of what's meaningful to him. But he's going to have people that like and dislike him along the journey, because there's a spectrum of opposite values in the world. And so I don't like to use the word better or worse unless you put it into a context. Just more effective and efficient at doing what they love doing in their life.
And what if two people living together and they realize that their values are different? They love each other, but their values are different, and they contradict. He spends too much time at work. She wants him to be home. What do you do?
That's guaranteed. If any two people have the exact same set of values, there's no reason for having a relationship, because you don't grow. If you're married, if you woke up with you and you were married to you, you'd have no fulfillment. So, you know, what you do is you ask the question. You identify the top values of this individual. You identify the top values of this individual. And you ask, how specifically is what my wife or spouse is dedicated to, what their top three highest values, the thing that they spontaneously do that they love doing, how is that helping me fulfill my top three? And answer that question 50 times, 100 times. The more you answer it, the more you're going to appreciate them. Because if you can see what they're dedicated to is serving you, being who they are, they want to be loved and appreciated for who they are, and their identity revolves around their highest value. So whatever's highest on their value, if you can see how it's serving you, you're not going to want to project onto them, you need to change, you need to get fixed, and fix them. They want to be loved. Then if you can turn around and ask, how is my highest values helping them? And answer that about 50 to 100 times. That exercise will increase dialogue, communication, appreciation, and love and intimacy in ways that's hard to comprehend. You'll take alternating monologues where she's speaking, he's not listening, and he's speaking, she's not listening, into a dialogue where they're both interested because they can both see that they're getting what they want out of that individual.
Right.
And believe it or not, it's utilitarian. And the customer is the same way. The customer is wanting what's in it for me. And so if we can communicate with that, we can take two completely different sets of values, link them together, and have a fulfilling relationship. Because you're not going to marry somebody that's got your own set of values. You wouldn't grow.
Yeah, it would be boring.
The ancient Greeks said if you have too many similarities of values, you have an infatuation. Like, you meet somebody and you're infatuated with them. You go, oh my God, we have the same number of eyes, the same number of ribs, the same number of teeth. We're soulmates. And if we have too many differences, we resent somebody. But if we have a balance of similarities and differences, we have lots. And that's what makes the relationship. That's what keeps the ring on the finger. So I think that the key is to ask, how specifically is my spouse's values helping me fulfill mine, and how is mine helping fulfill theirs? And put the energy into that question, and don't stop until you see it, until you get tears of gratitude for their uniqueness.
Fantastic. And I think this current time is a very, very good time for doing that.
Perfect time.
Yeah, perfect time. Perfect time. John,
Anybody that you care about deeply, I would do that exercise on.
I feel physical pain by closing the interview. And I'm serious, because talking to you, it's like drinking from the fresh well. I mean, it's incredible knowledge and wisdom. And it's thank you very much for sharing. I know that you have a lot of other things to do today. Are you in America now, or you're back in South Africa?
I am actually in Houston, Texas,
Uh-huh.
which is rare. It's the longest time I've been here because of the corona. I figured this is the best place to be because my family's here. Normally I'm traveling, as you know, and I live on a ship. So I'm normally sailing around or flying and staying in hotels. But I've been here in a hotel, and for 2 months, I was the guy at the hotel. They had 10 people working here. There was no hotel open, but they let me stay here. They knew me, so they said, well, no, we'll let you stay here. But so I had my own private chef and private this and private that kind of thing in this whole hotel. But now people are starting to come into the hotel again. And yeah, so I've been here and working away and doing my research and my writing and traveling on Zoom and speaking every single day.
Yes, and doing the wonderful job which you do to the benefit of all of us. Thank you very much, John. Pleasure talking to you. And
great chat and great interview and conversation. So thank you again, and thank you for helping me bring my mission to the people of Russia and wherever you're reaching right now. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Yes.